Today on the show, we got my boy, Riley Grindstaff. Now, Riley and I go way back. He may be a graduating senior heading off to Western Kentucky this fall to play college ball, but I've known him since he was a 9-year-old beating balls on the driving range with little junior sticks. This kid worked harder than anybody I've ever seen and has had quite the junior golf career growing up here in Franklin, Tennessee, and has been one of the standout players in the state for a long time. But it wasn't all uphill for Riley. We've had a lot of interesting ups and downs throughout his career. We'll talk about some of that in the podcast, where he had a case of the yips at one point and how we overcame that. And if you've ever been in that scenario, you know what I'm talking about. Not a lot of fun. But before I continue to bore you with this intro, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. And if you're not watching it, come out and check it out on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, as we are putting these out, and you can watch us interact with each other as we have these conversations. So, without further ado, here is Riley Grindstaff. What's happening, everybody? Today on the podcast, we got Riley Grindstaff, G Money, G Hizzle, my man. I've known this kid, since you were 8, I think, 9,
7,
something like that, maybe even younger.
Yeah.
He's one of the local studs that came out of Franklin. He's currently signed his life away to Western Kentucky, and so good luck with that. I've known what's happened out of Western Kentucky. One of my buddies went there for a couple years, and but he'll be good up there. He'll have a great time. But today we wanted to chat about you, Riley. And so give us the rundown. I know, obviously, your golf story a little bit better than others, but for the people listening to the podcast, right, I mean, the accolades of which you've accumulated over a junior golf career is pretty substantial. You've had a great, up until this point, great career playing junior golf. You've been ranked highly in the state. You've been ranked highly in the country. You've won many a tournament. And without tooting your horn so much that you can't fit in this room with me, tell us, what got you into the game of golf, though?
I lived really close to West Haven Golf Club, and whenever that opened, it really sparked this thing where I just enjoyed being outside already and getting to basically walk to the golf course with a bag on my shoulders. Took 5 minutes to walk there. I just really enjoyed being outside and having that much access to golf and the great game that it is. I just really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And I just had this spark in me to go out and keep practicing because I hated sucking at golf. So I just wanted to get better, and I mean it worked hard. I worked hard at it.
Yeah, and what was funny is you were homeschooled. Up until when did you go to middle school?
Fourth and fifth grade, I was homeschooled.
Yeah, and so then must have been fourth grade, because that's when I was an intern at West Haven for our first season, and I would see this little punk that wasn't taller than his bag out there like 9 a.m. hitting golf balls on a Tuesday, and I'm like, how? What is going on with this kid? And then I realized the whole story, and so what obviously what was the. I mean, obviously it was a long time ago, but what was the transition like for you going from homeschooling for a couple of years to into school for the first time?
It was a huge difference. I honestly hated going to school. I would wake up in the morning at 7, and my mom would have I would have water and breakfast, and then go ahead and start my day. I would get done with all my school by 8:30.
Yeah.
And then I'd be out at the course with all the old guys practicing, and they'd be all lining up watching me hit balls. And I mean, I just enjoyed being in that atmosphere of whenever I was younger and around all the older golfers that had so much more experience than I did. But transitioning to middle school, going to actual school, I mean, I was getting on the bus at 7:30 and then trucking off to school all day long. I would get off the bus and I would have the bus driver drop me off right outside the golf course. So I'd just walk there, and I'd already have my bag up there. But I mean, still, it was only an hour worth of practice because daylight was always so early back then.
Right.
So it was just a huge difference whenever I would be at the course 12 hours a day versus 2 hours a day. So that really dropped my level of experience over those years. And it's not something I regret doing. It's just something that, I don't know, I needed the human contact, I guess, with the other people that were my age to be able to interact socially.
Yeah, and it's a conversation I've had a lot of times because, golf is an individual sport. But on that same token, sometimes to play in some of these events you have to play in at the higher levels anyways with AJGA and Hurricane and a lot of these travel schedules for U.S. Junior, it's a little easier to be homeschooled in that high school era.
Totally. I mean, you get to travel more and stuff whenever you have more time to spare.
Yeah. So what was the time management difference that you had to figure out? I mean, obviously going from doing all your homework being done at like 9 o'clock and then going off to play versus being in school all day and then only getting a couple hours before dark. How did that affect your time management? How did you get around that?
I really had to piece together how much practice I wanted to get on one certain area for like that amount of time. I really had to like train my brain to really focus in on one certain aspect of my game each day. So like Monday I would go out and the course was closed, so I would just bring a shag bag of balls and I'd go down to the wedge range or chipping green and just chip for an hour and a half. And then Tuesday it would be putting for 30 minutes, and then maybe I'd go and hit a couple long irons or irons and work on those. It was just piecing out the times that I worked on certain things whenever I had less time to work on those things.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good idea to have in the back of your head, and you and I both know your dad's very old school in his thinking, and is I questioned at times whether he was going to crush you with some of his ideas.
Yeah.
And but I think to the same point, you might be one of the most creative golfers I've ever taught. Where you can do things to a golf club that not a lot of kids I taught could do, and I think a lot of that came from the fact that you just kind of figured it out on your own a lot of times, and the only time you called me hardly ever was like, I'm confused, and then I would solve the problem for you, and that was about it. I mean, you and I were never on a every day, every week basis. It was literally like Riley needs to figure some stuff out, and then I won't see Riley for 6 months, and then me and Riley would figure some stuff out, and then won't see Riley for 6 months, and I think it worked great because you thrived in that kind of environment, and so when you're like when other kids listen to this podcast, and and they're going to practice on their own, what were some of the things that you did to keep your brain engaged in your practice? What were some of those key elements?
Well, honestly, like I cannot thank you enough for everything that you've done for me. I mean, you just like with those little things that you've taught me in those, I don't know, 5 lessons a year that I maybe went to you. Like I really listened and paid attention, and I think that's all you can do whenever you're getting a lesson. So even if it wasn't as many, like you have to set up with a a pool noodle behind you at 3 fingers above and do all that junk. Like, you just took those little things that you gave me, and you just work on those. For me, I couldn't do 20 things and perfect them all at the same time.
100%.
And I understand that at a young age, I really learned that. So for me, going out and trying to play tournaments and then having all these mental thoughts in my head about my swing, I wasn't focusing on hitting it in the hole. I was focusing on, how can I hit this 5.5-yard draw and land it and stop it with a 6-iron. I was thinking, like, how can I stay technical to a certain level, but also play the game of golf and play well and be athletic almost. And the things that you taught me have, like, 100% stuck with me, and I just worked on those and tried to perfect those. Like, even if it was one thing, I would work on that for 6 months.
Right.
And say I'd come back to you, I had that one thing perfected.
Right.
That was what always happened.
100%.
So I think, like, whenever you go to a coach, get those certain things that he is telling you, which are obviously good. I mean, you're going to a well-known coach who's just perfect at everything that he does.
Not true, but
I mean, he knows what he's saying.
Yeah, maybe that.
So just work on those and really hone those in, and just find a way that it works with your swing, because not everything works with your swing, so make it your own.
Well, and that's what I applauded you for every time, was so many kids want it then and there and now, right? And I could count on my hand the number of kids that are willing to work through it more than I can count the number of kids that aren't.
Yeah.
And there's so many kids that want it instant gratification. And I have a kid now, it's very similar to you, where I gave him something and then didn't see him in a one-on-one lesson for a month, and he came in and it was vastly different. And that's kind of what you want to see as a coach. And for you, it was always, like you said, I was always trying to give you something, because I knew you were going to go put it to work, but I also wanted to give it parameters so that you couldn't like go over that threshold, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that was always interesting to me was like your ability to kind of like shrug shrug some of the bad juju off, right? And you always seem to have the best attitude of a lot of the kids that I coached. And so when you were, coming through junior ranks, there wasn't always easy times. What did you do to persevere through some of the struggle?
I mean, honestly, golf sucks. I mean, you suck at golf for most of the time that you play golf, and that's one thing that I've really just understood. It's a hard fact to really realize that you are gonna play bad for most of your life, but the fact of you understand that the more that you work at it and the more that you practice at it, the better you're gonna get. So, what was the question again? The exact question?
How you persevered through some of those struggles.
Okay, so that.
Now
the
everybody
attitude,
knows what I really dealt with every day.
Yes, exactly. No, I'm not as bad as Jeremiah.
Yeah. That's a fact. Oh, God, I love Jeremiah. We love you, buddy. All right, anyways, continue. How'd you persevere?
You just have to, understand the fact that not everything's going to go your way. Golf is golf. It's something that everyone strives to be the perfect at, but you're never going to be perfect. So you have to understand that and say, hey, I'm doing the best that I can. Why not just be happy with that?
Right.
Put the amount of work into it that you want, and you'll get the results that you that will come out from what you're putting into it.
100%. And what was always fun for me, because when you and Trey and Jeremiah and Jackson and I can't remember who else, but there's a couple others. Jack, yeah. When all you guys were hanging around and I was a young coach, it was always kind of fun for me to mess with you guys. And we'd have those putting contests. Pretty sure my track record was pretty high, but
always was.
But it was funny. There's one. I'm gonna brag on myself right now. There was one time you and I had a putting contest 1-on-1, and we were playing 21. You remember this? Mm-hmm. And you had it was a 13 or 14 point lead on me.
Yeah.
And it was not looking good for the coach. I was getting mad, and so I started making a run at the end, and then. But it was funny because you were talking. It was the first time I ever kind of caught you talking a little trash. Right, you were usually pretty the humble pie, kind of quiet, just did his thing. And this time you were talking a little smack, and I just wasn't having it that day. And I had to make the last putt to put it in to win, and I just set over the ball. I stared you in the eyes and just stroked it and just dropped it right in the bank. That was awful. To come back, and the look that you had when that moment happened was okay, I better not do that again because that didn't pan out. And I feel like that was one of my more higher coaching moments.
Yeah, you taught me how to trash talk.
That's right. Well, and I have a trash talk rule, and I've said it on the podcast before. The trash talk rule now is you can talk as much trash as you want, but you better follow it up with the perfect shot. If you don't, you owe me 30 push-ups. It's the rule now, right? But those little contests that we had, all of you kids that were in that group have gone on to play at a high level or collegiately or are going to play collegiately now. And I feel like that was a catalyst for a lot of you guys to learn how to compete and get comfortable competing and learning how to make a 6-footer, 10-footer, 15-footer, like when we played bank and 21, stuff like that, where you had to be clutch, you know what I mean? And I feel like that was a big time help. So what were, when you were practicing, what were some of the ways outside of what we just talked about, that you try to stimulate your mind a little bit, with short game or driver or playing on the golf course? What were some things you were doing to stay competitive?
Oh, I've got too many to count. That shot where Tiger Woods was chipping at Augusta and chips, and you see the Nike symbol rolling over the front of the cup.
If you don't know what that is, just stop following my podcast.
Stop playing golf. So we have this chipping green we had this chipping green at West Haven, and I would just sit there for hours on end, hitting every shot as if it was that shot. So, I had to make it to be able to stay alive, to go into those last couple of holes and have a shot at winning the tournament. And every chip was like that. It wasn't just sitting up there with 100 balls and just chipping them, just to chip them.
Right.
It was getting them as close as I could to making them and giving the ball a chance to go in.
Right.
And that's really what has taught me how to chip, honestly, because whenever I'm chipping, I always try and make it.
Right.
Whether sometimes it's a little less aggressive and I'm trying to roll it over the front edge, or sometimes it's really aggressive and I'm trying to hit the flag stick and drop it in.
Right.
It just teaches you how to really have a great imagination towards those types of shots whenever you're practicing, because I think that's a big key in practicing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that's a good way. A lot of the mental stuff we've talked about, leads to
the over a repetition kind of like bores the mind, and after about 3 or 4 reps, your brain kind of checks out.
Mm-hmm.
So finding those kind of like, everybody does I hope everybody's at least done once, where you like make the putt to win the Masters.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's been around since I was a kid. But one of the struggles I wanted to talk to you about, and then we'll get into all your like accolades, was, and I hate bringing it up, but I'm going to bring it up, is that the time you caught the yips with your putter.
Yeah.
You knew this was
we call it the Y word. You don't say yips in this.
But like, you show up and you tell me this horror story of a round, like 17 greens in regulation and shot 90 something.
100.
100. There
100.
Flat on the nose
in a tournament
with like 16, 17 greens in your pocket.
Yep.
Astronomical. This just makes me hurt.
52 putts.
That's right. Oh God. But when you came in, right, I had like a little Russian roulette drill I had, right, and you yipped air, right, because I pulled the ball out from underneath your nose. And when your eyes, you're basically, the drill is you set up over a putt, close your eyes, and then I may or may not have the ball for you. And when you yipped air, it was like a light bulb or like a lightning strike hit you, and you just kind of like realize, like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Like, I just yipped at nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, because there's kids that, I went through the yips. My sophomore season, I went through it. I couldn't make a 2-foot putt. It's like the plague.
Mm-hmm.
How did you recover? Obviously, I showed you I kind of opened your eyes to like the laughability of it. But what was the final, like, what was the catalyst, and how did you overcome that?
I think I had like 6 new putters in the span of probably 6 months. And the last putter that I got was the Bettinardi arm lock, and I just felt something different with it. It wasn't like a nervousness over it. It locks into your forearm, and then I clawed with it because both my hands were screwed up. So I found that, and all good putting is, and I've heard this from numerous coaches, is it's like the yips especially, are bad technique followed with bad confidence. Mm-hmm. So good technique, you just have to work on it. And for me, with a normal putter, I can't putt. But with my arm lock, I had this way of having a straight back and straight through stroke, and I felt confident with it at the same time. And after many putting lessons, I understood that I was a good putter just in my head. You just have to have that confidence, and that's really, I could try a million different putters, and if I didn't have confidence, I would absolutely suck at putting.
Well, and do you feel like maybe having all those putters led to part of the confidence
Yeah,
loss?
Definitely. I've always, whenever I had my first putter, my dad got me a Scotty Cameron, and I was on top of the moon. It was like I was probably 9 or 10, and I had it for 3 years. And whenever I got the yips, I was so mad that I had to leave this putter back, and I couldn't use it anymore because it was a short putter, and I had to grip it normal. And I really just lost my confidence whenever I had to switch putters like 5 or 6 times. I just always liked the consistency of looking down and seeing the same thing.
Right.
But with my new putter, I know that I'll probably never switch unless they make it illegal.
Yeah.
It's just something that's the same face impact of the ball. You can feel it the same. It's not switching over time. It's just really good.
The fact that I wanted to bring up afterwards was like, it wasn't but maybe a month or so, then you went down to Windstone and shot like 6 under or something crazy, or got 6 under, like an AJGA qualifier.
Qualifier. I was 6 under through 10, I think.
Yeah,
I was in the lead by like 6.
And like I said, folks, this was like within a month or two of shooting 100 with 17 greens in regulations.
Yeah.
So but you always had that ability to go low, and like in that kind of time frame, like 600 through 10 holes. That's unbelievable. What do you feel like led you to be comfortable doing that? Like how? Because a lot of kids get a couple under par and start panicking, right? Or they start protecting that couple under. That was never really your protocol. Maybe you're just too dumb to understand that, and you just keep going like Russ Koepka level or Dustin Johnson, just brain turns off and goes and whatever. But what's kind of your thought progression when you start getting deep?
Whenever I was younger, I think I got to 1 under par whenever I was like 10 years old, and I was shaking over the shots. Like I was like, oh my gosh, do not screw this up. And then as I got older, I just somehow got this click of like, shut my brain off. I didn't think about anything. That was like my happy place was on the golf course. I was not thinking about anything else. I was just stepping up and hitting a shot. And I think just getting yourself in that mind frame of nothing else matters. It's just this you and the golf course and this beautiful blue sky, it's just happy. It's a happy place for me.
Right.
And I think it was just repetition and understanding that I could do the things that would have me shoot 9 under, 10 under, 11 under. I could, with how good my swing was and competition, like just understanding my body and knowing that I had the capabilities to do those things. It wasn't like, oh, how am I going to screw this up? Because in my head, I was good enough to shoot those numbers. So
Right.
I was like, I got this.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, to give your dad some credit, right? He was very blunt, very honest and open with when you guys would. I mean, at least I know. I'm sure what he told me was not very far different than what he was telling you. When you guys would break down your rounds or talk about it, and I mean, so there was no beating around the bush. It was like, here, this is this is it.
Yeah.
Just do this, and there's the plan.
Yeah.
And I feel like that probably helped make things a little more clear for you too.
Yeah, I mean, going over the rounds definitely helped me mentally see a bigger picture. Seeing, hey, I mean, I could have hit this shot in the left fairway instead of the right fairway, and I would have a better angle into the green and be able to hit it closer to the hole, have a better chance at birdie.
Right.
And that's really those little things that just train your mind to learn how to play a golf course the way that it's supposed to be played.
Right. And so when you go into tournament mode and you start prepping for your events, what are the things that you're doing when you look at a golf course? What are you looking for?
Definitely the easier places to miss. Golf, as my college golf coach says, I mean, we do a lot of qualifiers that are 2-ball, worst ball. So you hit a shot, you hit another shot, and you choose the worst ball, and you have to play that, and then 2 more, and then worst the ball. So he said he's taught me, even in the brief 30 minutes that we talked about it, where to choose the best shot. Wherever you're going to miss it is going to be the best place. So going for a par 5 with 3-wood from 285 and trying to hit 2 perfect shots right there, it's going to be so hard. Even hard for Rory or DJ or Tiger. Sure. But laying up to that perfect number, even if it's in the rough, you're still going to have a better chance at making birdie.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I saw on Instagram from Golf Digest maybe yesterday, the day before, where Rory was saying he was, if he can shoot under par playing worst ball, through and through, right? So hit 2 drives, play the worst one, 2 approach shots, play the worst one.
It's hard.
Thereby you have to make 2 birdie putts from whatever depth. So you better hit that wedge shot close, which again means you have to hit 2 wedge shots close. It's pretty tough. And there was, back in the day when I was your age, there was a rumor that Tiger shot 66 at Medalist playing in worst ball, in his heyday. And for those of you that have never heard of Medalist or seen Medalist, it's where they played the match not long ago with Tiger and Phil. But that golf course is hard, and to shoot 66 alone is a good number, let alone worst ball. So that's definitely it's interesting that they would do it for qualifying, but that's definitely a good way to practice. There's no question about that, especially for somebody your caliber.
Yeah.
Beginners, I'd wait a little bit. But before we jump into what's about to happen for you in college, you, like I said, you've won plenty of tournaments. You've played in a lot of cool events, Tennessee Junior Cup, all that.
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite memories from junior golf?
It was definitely the last state. So I played state. I tried to qualify 4 years, and all through my high school. Sucked in region every year. Absolutely did not qualify. Just didn't know how to play. So, and I think it's just going into the winter season. Your brain kind of shuts off, and you don't
burnouts in effect.
Yeah, exactly. But this year, I just told myself I was a good enough golfer. I mean, I'm not going to play D1 golf and not make state 4 years in a row. So I was about to just call coach and say, hey, I'm not playing anymore.
You don't want me, buddy.
Yeah. But I played. Actually, I played really good. We had our region at West Haven, and hole 10, I made an 8 and still qualified for state. And I was like, okay, this is just a sign. I'm going to play good. Right. And I worked my butt off for 2 weeks straight, knowing that I was going to play state and knowing that I wanted to win. That was my one goal, was to win state. And my best memory from that was going into, I think I was 3 back, maybe, after the second or the first 9, the second day. And I was like, okay, I got to turn something on. It was super windy, just not a great day for golf. And I birdied. I just had all pars. I could not get a putt to fall. And then I made a 40-footer for birdie. And I was like, I got this. Come on. And then I get to like 15. I make a bogey. So I'm 3 back or 2 back, 3 back. And then 16, I have a 5-footer for birdie and lip out. So and he bogeyed, Sheldon McKnight, great golfer, bogeyed on that hole. And he bogeyed a hole at that time. So I was going into 17. I was like, okay, I'm checking the leaderboard. I'm 2 back with 2 to play. Dream come true. I mean, I'm just like head over heels, like, come on, I got to do this. And I hit 17 is probably the hardest hole in the golf course. It's 200, 195, par 3. I hit 6 iron just because I'm amped up, ready.
Sure.
And dead into the wind, too. And put it probably 35 feet past the hole. I'm like, okay, I got to make this, got to. And step up over the putt and just roll it over the front edge. There's a video of it, and it's my favorite video, probably one of them. So,
your Tiger moment.
Yes, I give it a fist pump. I'm hyped up, and my parents are going crazy. And I made the birdie, so then I'm going to 18. I'm like, all right, I have to birdie this. I mean, he's a couple holes behind, and anything can happen. But if I really want a chance, I need to birdie this hole. There are probably 150 people around the green. I'm like, oh, gosh, I've never been in a moment like this. So, I mean, I hit a perfect drive with like a 2 iron and then hit 9 iron, 8 iron to probably 25 feet. And it's an uphill left or right to left. And I just know I'm not going to leave this short. I mean, I chose the bold line and just hammered it. Hit the back of the cup, dropped. I mean, everyone was screaming and yelling. It was the best moment I've ever had in golf.
And what's interesting there is, like, you lived for that 2 down with 2 to play moment, right? And a lot of people I know would not be amped up about that. It'd be really easy to look at that as a impossible scenario where you almost have to force a situation, which you did. I mean, quite frankly, you make those 2 putts coming in, and definitely forced his hand to stay at par or better.
Yeah,
and I think that kind of, again, that's what I think separates you a lot from a lot of kids is, like, you strive for that moment. And a lot of people would fear that moment.
Yeah.
And in golf and in life, but in golf, if you can't look at those moments and do what you did and get hyped and get pumped, like, this is it. This is like
Last
every
round of
putt
high
I've
school
made,
golf.
every putt I've ever made on the putting green, every chip I've ever dreamed about. This is what I've lived for.
Yeah.
And it's funny how many people will do that on the practice green and then get that situation in real life and panic.
Yeah.
Instead of going, I've been waiting for this for a decade.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, this is it. So that I applaud you for thinking that way, because it's not easy to have that mentality, right? It definitely takes a lot of training, a lot of practice, maybe a lot of loss to get there.
Totally.
What was, like, when you look back, what was the biggest hurdle you overcame that allowed you to go from I'm a good golfer to I'm now, like, one of the top ranked kids in the state?
I think obviously, like, junior golf scoreboard, you get a ranking and all that, and, like, seeing yourself rise up the ranks as you're playing better in tournaments, I think that's definitely a big deal. I think you see where you rank in the state, kind of. But honestly, I think it wasn't even me playing. It was me understanding that, hey, I've shot these numbers, I've won these tournaments, and I can be good enough. And it was just understanding that my swing was good enough for me. It wasn't, oh, I've always got something to change to get Adam Scott swing, perfect posture, perfect, like, angle of attack and all this stuff.
Right.
It was understanding that I can perfect what I envision as my swing. So getting that consistency and understanding that, hey, my swing may not be Adam Scott's or Rory's or something, but I can be good enough with my swing, you know, and just understanding that and having that confidence that no matter what anyone else says, I'll still have my swing and I'll still be great at that swing.
100%. And I think having coached your swing, there is a lot of uniqueness in it with the way your pelvis moves and the way it, and it's something we've always kind of looked at and been cautious with because, trying to save a back, and I have some interesting video of you from younger years, to say the least, where less than desirable posting back positions.
Yeah.
But, and I think, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the tour now is highlighting so many different styles. There's so many ways to move a golf ball around.
Yeah.
Matt Wolf now.
I think I saw Matt Wolf and I was like, okay, my swing's, it's fine.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, you kind of had that realization early, like, this is the way I'm going to do it, and I can get it around and golf my ball. And that's where, where I would also heed a little caution to is, like, you still did all of the right things in your golf swing. It may have just been slightly out of place here and there. Obviously, if you're a kid, like, that's given the old, like, 30 handicap reverse loop way over the top, that bar doesn't pass.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
We can morph it into a swing, and then eventually, and this is where, has been my focus the last few years, is eventually you get to a place where it's good enough. Learn a skill.
Yeah,
Learn the
exactly.
skills. Don't worry about, it's not a technical problem.
Yeah.
It's a skill set problem. And too many people try and find some technical move that's going to make the magic button go, that's like, now I'm going to shoot 62. Like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah.
And so, anyways, moving from that, junior golf's behind you. Like I said, you've had a heck of a run. You are now committed to Western Kentucky. So talk to us about recruitment, because your recruitment has gone through, like, 3 different NCAA rules changes, a pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, talk to us about that journey, because it was probably not the easiest of roads trying to figure out college.
Not at all. I mean, I started out young whenever I was in, like, I was freshman or sophomore, and I was thinking about college and where I wanted to play. Of course, you always think, like, I wanted to go to Stanford.
Sure.
Ever since, like, 5th grade. They had the best golf team, best golf coach, whatever.
Sure.
And whenever all the years and rules and all this stuff came, I didn't even know. I mean, I had to ask you. I was like, so can I talk to college coaches? And you were like, yeah, like, you have to call them or something. And I was like, okay.
Right.
I was like a junior, and that was whenever the rules changed, whenever it was like they can't talk to you until junior September. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It's right around my birthday. Maybe I'll get some good luck.
Right.
But it was a lot of just, like, putting yourself out there. You can't play golf and expect them to, especially if you're playing locally, you can't expect people from Alabama to be looking at you and think that you're like the next Tiger Woods just from Nashville.
Right.
So you have to put yourself out there, and that's kind of what I did. I mean, I talked to 50 different college golf coaches, and just putting myself out there and saying, hey, I'm Riley Grindstaff. I'm really interested in playing college golf. I think I have enough talent to be on your team. Would you consider me? And just, here's my scores. Here's the next tournaments I'm playing in. I think that's the main key of, like, looking and giving them enough information to be able to follow you and stay along with you, but not applying too much pressure. But I think the hardest part with my recruitment process was telling coaches that I had committed somewhere else. But I just every coach that I talked to was all about me, and I mean, I was more than grateful. I was like, wow, you're actually gonna let me come on a visit and get me a hotel room and all this stuff, doing everything for me and making me feel at home. But the hardest thing was saying, hey, I loved your school, I loved your visit, I love your golf team, but this place was right for me. And I think that's a main key that I would tell anyone else, is understand that they're happy for you no matter where you go. And all they want is for you to find, and hopefully, I mean, you find their school the best and where you want to live. But they're not going to want you if a year from now, whenever you're there,
you're unhappy.
You're unhappy, you're hating it, you can't even play golf because you're just thinking about too much. Like, they're not going to want that. They want you to be happy where you're at, be happy with the town that you're in, and understand that you're there for one reason, that's golf. I mean, they're paying you, they want you to play your best and contribute to their golf team.
But yeah, and that makes a great point, because and the thing you have to realize too is, like, not many kids get to make that phone call back saying, I'm not going here, multiple times over.
Yeah.
But to that same point, it goes to what I've been saying for a long time now, is, like, you have to be happy where you're at, because coaches change and teams change.
Yeah.
Teams will always change because every year somebody cycles out. The coach may change the day you show up. It might be somebody different. So the end of the day, the school has to be what's important to you and what you're going to study and where you're going to be. And so what was it that sold you to Western Kentucky?
I really loved the town. The town was just perfect for me. It was just like where I grew up. And the facilities that we have there, it wouldn't matter if whoever coach was there or whatever team was there. I would still be able to get better and make it to that final goal of hopefully being on the PGA Tour one day. It was always looking what is going to make my game better over the years versus am I going to have a good time with the team. You know, I personally didn't really talk to much of the team. I went to Austin Peay and I hung out with the team all weekend long, and that was a great time. But then I realized, hey, they're not going to be on the team whenever I'm there.
Right.
And that it's just going to be a whole new set of people. So the people that are there, I mean, matter, yes, of course, but they're not WKU. WKU is the town, the college town, the atmosphere that's around there, just the happy place that I mean, it's close enough to home as well. You know, I can come home. I was talking to my dad, like he said I have like 3 different ways to get away from life.
Right.
So I can go to the facility, I can go to Old Stone, the golf courses that we have. I can come home for a weekend. You know, like there are many different ways that I can get away, focus on me, get my game better, get my life in a happy place. You know, I think that's the main key is like just being happy wherever you're at.
Definitely. And so, like you kind of said there, like the town is what kind of sold you, but also, you know, everybody's a little different with being able to realize how far away from home they can be and be comfortable, right? You guys are definitely a close-knit family.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your brother's probably the farthest away right now at Ole Miss. And, you know, like for me, it was no big deal. Like I ran 1,000 miles away to Mississippi State and just said, I'm out of here, see you guys. And, you know, but that's me. Like I could have gone to California too. It didn't matter. I mean, or I could have been in Penn State. I probably still wasn't going to go home.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that's what, you know, you have to kind of analyze is what's my comfort with my distance from my family. If I'm always around my family, then all of a sudden I don't get to go home, especially as a college golfer. Like you're going to be on the road 6 weeks every semester, right? Away from not just your family, but from the school. And then if you're like far enough away where you can't even like get a breather on a 2-day Labor Day holiday or a fall break that you can't even make it back to the house, like that's not an easy ask.
Big deal,
yeah, especially to be able to perform and play too, right? So it's definitely a good consideration on your part. What was the school that reached out to you that you know might have been higher than you thought you could play at? I mean, obviously you thought about playing for Stanford. That's obviously way up there. But was there a school that surprised you that reached out and you're like, holy cow, I never thought they would call me?
Yeah. East Tennessee State University, I mean, they're a heck of a team. I mean, and that new golf coach there, Coach Amos, I believe is his name, he has worked so hard to get his recruitment the way that he wants it, and he understands that teams will vary over the years, but he is really making that team what it is today, and they're playing the best schools in the nation.
Right.
And I just did not expect him to reach out to me, you know. I mean, he had a great team. He's got some great recruits coming in with Jack Tickle. I mean, he plays a lot of Tennessee junior golf, and I really wasn't expecting that just because they're a great team. And I mean, it wasn't until that point, and even just colleges in general, that I realized that I had the potential to play in college.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's probably a good thing too, is like that you have the wherewithal to kind of recognize like somebody like that is what they're doing, and even though that didn't fluster you, right? I mean, you still were, you know, on your way to Western Kentucky probably, and even though that was a nice phone call to get, I mean, that's something that another one of the kids I taught, you know, he ends up winning the junior am and then gets a phone call from Mississippi State and a couple other big time schools, and you're kind of like sitting there going, well, I've already kind of verbally said I'm going here, and you're like, it's up to you. I mean, if you didn't see yourself playing there before, don't let it just because they slid into your DMs. I mean, like you gotta like, you know, answer them back. And so it's the college recruitment thing is it's such a relief, I could imagine, that once you finally sign off, you can just like breathe again. Yeah. Did you ever feel pressure to perform because of the college recruitment?
Oh, 100%. Whenever I was going through the yips, I got the yips at a tournament at the state junior. It was probably maybe a couple weeks after that, whenever I actually really got them. And I 4-putted in front of 4 college coaches. And I mean, of course, they're triggered by nervousness and all that. And,
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, 100%, you're nervous and you want to perform and you want to shoot 65 every round that you play.
Right.
But understanding that the more that they look at you, the more that the more that they're looking for how you react to certain situations. Like
100%.
I remember, I mean, just talking to coaches and people that I know talking to the coaches that were looking at me, and they were like, "What are you looking at Riley for? Like, he's a good golfer, yeah, but like, why do you keep watching him?" And they're like, "We're waiting on him to screw up and throw his club and get all mad and chuck his hat across 50 yards." I mean, they're looking for you to break and understand and like see how well you can handle those tough pressure situations.
Yeah, and I've said this 100 times on the show. A college coach is not afraid of somebody trying to go low. That's their job to teach you how to do that. What they're looking for is a kid that can turn a 78 into a 74 or a 76 into a 72 and not a 76 into an 80. And that's been your MO forever. Is outside of when you had that yip window. You would turn absolute garbage rounds into at least something that would put you on the podium.
Yeah.
And that's, my sister-in-law was the same way. Like, I just could not fathom how she did some of the things she did because of the way she struck the ball. And then my wife was the opposite. She would strike the ball absolutely crazy, but then, had a hard time getting in the winner's circle. So when you finally had like that breath of fresh air, you've committed and you signed. And so what, have you played in anything since you signed away to Western Kentucky, or have you had that chance to like really test your game now that all that's behind you?
I got a chance to soak it all in,
Yeah.
I mean, being a senior, you kind of understand that, hey, I'm going away from home next year. I spend a lot more time with my family. Understand that I won't be there next year. I won't be home. But there hasn't been many tournaments because of all the COVID and all the just stuff like that. In the wintertime, I normally don't play many tournaments unless we're traveling to like Florida or something.
Right.
But understanding like you're gonna fluctuate and you just need to, I guess, I'm trying to think of what to say right here. Like spend some time at home,
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you got to because you realize high school's ending, right? You're heading into another chapter of your life, and you're about to go on your own, and truly, in the sense of the word, on your own. I mean, you're going to move to Kentucky, and then you're going to have to be able to, figure out your own dinner, and which apparently you can cook from what I saw on your mom's, Facebook, or whatever. The avenue now starts to change. So when you got this last summer coming up for pre-college, right? And we were just kind of talking this before we started the show. Is like, you got a few tournaments maybe to line up, keep your game sharp, and then you're off to college. What are your goals now with college? You got 4 or 5 years, depending on what you want to do with it, of eligibility. What are you setting goals for yourself for the next 4 or 5 years?
I want to win the most amount of tournaments that I can. So I want to set records for WKU. I mean, that's really all the goals that I've always had are setting records for every school that I'm at. And I want to. I mean, we just recently had Billy Tom Sargent. He played at Western Kentucky, and he is a pro now, and he made it to NCAA championship. First player ever from WKU to make it there. And that is my goal freshman year. I want to make it there, whether it's individual or the team. I want to work my butt off and really focus on that goal.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a heck of a statement, going there freshman year and qualify. That'd be awesome. And I think you could do it. I think now it's just a matter of figuring out for you, and I've said this before, some kids, the goal is to get to college. Some kids realize college is the next step. And I think you fall in that latter bracket where college is just the next step of what I want to do with this game. And so for you, and where you're going, I strongly encourage you to realize that the goals you're trying to set are goals that you're going to set so that you can achieve post-college goals of playing professionally.
100%. I mean, the only reason I would want to make it to the NCAA championship is to get that exposure and get my name out there.
Right.
I mean, you can't graduate college and have no one know your name and expect to go out and play Corn Ferry events and stuff. You got to put yourself out there, get your name known, and understand that like people will sponsor you because of that.
Very true. And the getting backing to go play on TV is tough.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not an easy road. It's not a guaranteed road.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start setting those and start having that goal in mind, right? What I would encourage you to do is just like you did in junior golf, is put your nose to the grindstone and suffer through whatever's slowing you down from being at that step, right?
Yeah.
But also being observant. Like, what are these people doing that I'm not doing yet? Like,
Yeah.
when you go watch a tour player practice, go watch a
Mm-hmm.
tour player in the tournament, like, what are they doing? Why,
Yeah.
you know, what have they done, and what are their aspects of their game that I can learn from? And maybe that's what I'm missing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think the hard part is you don't want to change what you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you got there.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be very careful when you make adjustments, is that you're not taking away from your skill set, but also adding to your toolbox.
Yeah.
Right. So, Riley G Money, when it's all said and done, and you got the spring semester of high school to graduate, and this summer of junior golf for Tennessee, when you put the final stamp on junior golf for Tennessee for Riley Grindstaff, what do you want people to remember?
I want to win the state amateur. You know, I want to put myself out there and say, hey, a junior won the state amateur. I'm not sure how many people have done it. The state junior, I mean, I know Jack Morris set some records last year, and I know I have the capabilities of doing stuff like that.
Right.
And just going out and setting records and being the best that's ever played in Tennessee, you know, as a junior.
Totally, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time this morning to show up and chat with me and be on the podcast, because, again, like, your story is one of a kid who has had success at every age. You've also had struggles through every age, and you've had a different journey than most. And I feel like your story's, you know, it's going to be a good one no matter where you end up. So I think the next step for Riley is to go out there, dominate like I know you can, and put that stamp on Western Kentucky and see what you can turn into it, man. So before you bounce today, right, if you could give one piece of advice to everybody that's listening that's a junior golfer right now, what would be that last word of advice?
Find something that you enjoy, whether it's golf or music or whatever it is, and really work hard at it. You know, I mean, you have to put yourself into it 100%, and you'll get better things out of it than you'd expect.
Totally. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Riley Grindstaff right there for you. And be sure to follow along to his story, because you won't forget the name. You'll remember the name. Trust me. And Riley, thank you so much for showing up and chatting, buddy.
Thank you for having me.